Opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not WSTU. WSTU does not endorse any products mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum, brought to you by... Get interested, get educated, get involved, and give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
There we go. Whoops. Hi, I'm Jillian Plymale, and I'm here with Connor and Jordan, a few of my two really close friends. So I'm hosting today. Cassidy is actually picking up a new puppy, so she can't be with us today. But
Aww.
I know, it's so cute. But she will be missed, but the show must go on.
Right. And to remind our listeners, this is a youth and government program, and all our hosts and guests are students from in the Martin County school system, and maybe the panel of students here, on this show could give your name and the school you attend and what you do in youth and government before we start the show.
Connor, do you want to go first?
Yeah, Connor, you go.
Sure. Hi, I'm Connor. I'm 16. I go to Martin County High School, and I'm a sophomore, and I'm in the legislative branch of youth and government.
Very good. Okay.
My name is Jordan Scott, and I was a 2020 at Clark Advanced Learning Center, and Miss Jillian happened to reach out to me today and wanted me to appear on the show just to talk about, some things that are going on in today's world.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Jordan.
And of course, I'm Jillian, as I already said, but I was actually in the judicial branch in YIG this year.
And you go to?
Martin County.
Martin County is all right. Martin County is being heard from today. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have another one, right? Another.
Nope, that's it.
That's it.
All of us.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, congratulations, everybody. So go ahead. Start your show.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, you can do the good, bad, and ugly. Yes. Yeah. All right. Let me see if I can cue the music for you. Here we go. All right. There you go. Got to have the soundtrack for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Go ahead.
So funny. So, for the good today, there's a golden retriever named Finley who broke the world record for the most tennis balls in his mouth.
Okay.
That's insane.
So Finley had trained for an entire year, and he managed to fit 6 tennis balls in his mouth, breaking the world record.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So
Did he get them in there by himself?
What did you say, Connor?
Did he get those balls in his mouth by himself, or like?
You know what?
How do you pick up 6 tennis balls?
I did not get the logistical part of it all, but I know the owner kept trying to find ways to prove that there was actually 6 in his mouth, and she had a hard time with that. But I guess they figured it out.
Is that not animal abuse? I'm calling
I don't know.
PETA.
The dog was taffy. Okay, so that's the good.
Right.
The bad is that a dog has just tested positive for corona, which is a little scary. It was a German Shepherd in New York, but it is yet to be proven if dogs can help spread the disease. However, he is just put on a list with a lion, a tiger, and 2 cats who have also tested positive.
That's really sad.
Poor guy.
I was really getting ready for you to say a bear, like a lion, a tiger, and a bear.
Right. I mean, yeah, we had everything but bears going on here. Yeah, that's true.
All right. So for the ugly,
yes,
we've got a crazy one.
Oh.
For all of those out there who watched Tiger King, Carol Baskin now owns Joe's Exotic Zoo. And the article says that on Monday, an Oklahoma judge found that the infamous Joe Exotic committed fraud and transferred his properties to his mother to avoid the $1 million he owed to Carol Baskin. She now is in possession of his 16 acres of land and his zoo.
In the zoo.
And the zoo.
All right. I wonder if there's a bear in the zoo. Yeah.
There has to be. There has to be.
Honestly, I feel like because there's just been so much going on in the news about this whole entire show. So
All right. Very good. Okay.
I
Well,
gotta catch myself up.
so that is the good, the bad, and the ugly in today's news. Thank you, Jillian. All right.
No problemo. So on top, our next topic is college with Corona. So
Now you're talking the virus, not the beer, right?
yes, the virus.
Okay.
The virus.
I just want to be. I mean, it's college, so you just never know.
True.
All right. I just want to, want to be clear.
So I was, reading up on it curiously, and in May, it kind of seemed like the schools were like, yeah, fall seems plausible. It seems like we'll resume. We're not too worried. Kids can come back to the dorms. But as of right now, they're starting to kind of rethink things, and they just need to find a way that all students can be tested. And they're also trying to find a way to waive the liability on the schools if there was an outbreak. So,
Right. Liability drives the bus. Your dad can give you a primer on that, I'm sure.
Yes, and he does.
This is Jordan speaking. I know for me personally, because, I'm obviously a graduating senior, this has been the talk of the town for all the kids going to college. My sister, she's going to American University, which is in Washington, D.C., and they are still not giving them a definite answer. They were like, we're going to wait off until maybe the late June to tell you guys if you're going to come back to school or if you're just going to do classes online. I personally think, if there seriously is still an issue with going back to school and making that decision, I think freshmen should go back just to get their first year in on the campus. And maybe, I don't know, everyone else stay home.
That's an interesting take. I would have never gone that way, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that actually might be a good idea, and it's kind of a good thing. We need to start thinking of alternatives because I just feel so bad for the incoming freshmen.
Right.
I think it's something that we can get acquainted to if we're, to be on campus, to be in those, bigger classroom settings. Because, there can be upwards of 1,000 people in a classroom. So, if you really want to break the numbers down, I feel like the best way to do that, just the freshmen going.
I like that. I definitely like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now, are you aware of the what the statistical? Any of you students done probability and statistic analysis and things of that sort in school?
No,
I took that last year, actually.
Okay. So the question is, what is the probability of students getting or transmitting the virus? Is that high, low, very low? Almost nil? I wonder what those numbers are. By now, I have to imagine there has to be some statistical profile that either is in the process of being developed or has already been developed.
Yeah, I don't know that one, but that will definitely be an interesting one, and I will write that down for next week to have that statistic.
Right?
Because I'll tell you right now,
it's a good question, though.
It is.
Because I know.
Why should students? My argument is if students have an extremely low probability of being ill, let them go to school.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think if students are uncomfortable or they have other health issues, like accommodations should be easily provided, and it's just a touchy situation.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah.
But
it'll be interesting to see how many students take gap years this year and like how that'll impact admissions for next year.
Whoa.
As you know, Jillian, you're an incoming senior, so I wonder how that gap year will impact your class and applications and things.
That's a good question.
That's a scary thought. I honestly didn't think about that, but
oh no,
gap years are definitely something that I would consider if I was an incoming freshman in college this coming up fall. But so
there's a asteroid that's supposed to zip by the planet Earth this weekend, as if we don't have enough things on our plate to worry about.
We are literally living in an FX movie in 2020. Like I'm waiting for those end credits to come up for them to be like, okay, it's finally over. But
so there's that. But I think the probability of you getting bitten by an alligator or bitten by a shark or have a coconut fall on your head is probably greater than the asteroid, but yet the asteroid made the news.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways.
That's really scary.
Right? And
we've had killer bees, we've had coronavirus.
Right? Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
So segueing into something else a little happier.
All right.
The SpaceX mission was successful on May 30th, which is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It carried 2 American astronauts, and this was the first time SpaceX had sent humans into space, and it validated the SpaceX transportation system, which is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. The first time in over 9 years, American rocket, American astronauts from American soil. So that's the trifecta.
Yeah, and the Falcon 9, I believe was called, is the actual rocket, which they were able to land successfully, which normally those rockets just go to waste, right? They don't land. Isn't that how it works?
Well, that's the SpaceX model. That's their, that is, if SpaceX can put an astronaut into space. I think, I haven't seen the recent numbers, but I think the projected budgeted amount was about $25 million per seat per astronaut. Okay.
Wow.
We have been for the past 9 years buying seats on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft at a cost of about $89 million per seat per astronaut. So because the bulk of the vehicle is recoverable and reusable, it lowers the cost. It's a little bit like gas and go.
That's really cool.
That's the SpaceX.
It's the rocket part that's reusable, correct?
Well, yeah, and the cabin, the crew cabin, that's also is will get reused as well.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the Dragon spacecraft, and that will seat up to 7. But this was a Demo 2 mission, so they only had 2 astronauts in this mission because they're largely charged with the responsibility of doing like a shakedown cruise to check it out to make sure everything's going to work, and then they'll be doing it with some frequency. Now, the rockets that they use for each manned launch will all be brand new ones. And then the rocket will be reused for just other missions. For example, we just had a SpaceX launch, I think it was yesterday, and that put up more of the Starlink satellites. Each rocket each Falcon 9 goes up through SpaceX with the Starlink satellites, puts about 60 of those things up in one launch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Each one is about the size of a college refrigerator.
Oh.
That kind of to give you some perspective, spatial wise.
Wow.
Yeah. And that'll be the new 5G system that he's trying to sell. And that's going to be his funding mechanism for taking people to Mars. That's his thinking.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah. All right. So now you're up to speed on everything SpaceX.
Yes. So I found something local, which is something that I personally had kind of followed throughout, and I just I'm always on the water with my brother and stuff, and so this kind of hit close to home in a different kind of way. But there was a guy named Kyle Barrett, and he was arrested on Monday with $152,000 bail. And we're about to run out of time, but he is arrested and charged for the murder of two people, or possibly charged with the murder of two people in a boating accident this October. And it was said that he was under the influence, and he happened to hit a channel marker, which this kind of segued into a question and a topic of conversation that I just think that there should be more safety precautions on the water, and maybe finding a way to light up the channel markers and hoping that this sort of tragedy doesn't happen again. Because I think with so many people out on the water, it could be a really, really good thing locally for us to try to do and start creating that movement towards just safer water and less boating accidents. And this is a really, really sad and hard situation on the community. So.
Yeah, we had a death, was it last year, a family, a Palm City family. It was a couple of folks passed because they hit the channel marker at an excessive speed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's all right. Very good. Do you want to you want to take your break early? Normally we take it at 5:30, but do you need to take it early because of Zoom time?
Yeah, I think the Zoom time's going to cut us out, so I think that's probably good.
All right, we'll do that. So we'll let Rocky and Bullwinkle take us to break here.
Hey, Mr. Peabody. And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Thirty seconds.
Welcome back to WSTU 1450. This is Jillian, Jordan, and Connor.
All right, the Treasure Coast Forum. Very good. Well done. Yes, that's your
Got
first.
it this time.
That's your first welcome back, and that you did a stellar job. You must be Sean Plymale's daughter.
Something like that.
Something like that. It's in the DNA. All right. So, what's next on the hit parade?
So this next topic is something that I just felt like we had to touch on. As we all know, there's been big stuff going on this week. And I wanted to talk about the tragedy that happened on May 25th that has sparked great outcry across America. And that is the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, and how that affected us locally and also nationally. 50 states, all 50 states participated in the movement. And I really think this has sparked inspiration in our country for just equality and to love each other and just create more unity in our country, which is really, really cool. Jordan, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes. So like Jillian said, we've been some issues for the past couple of weeks, but these aren't issues that have only been happening this week or last week or, whatever it is. But I like to relate this quote back that I have been hearing. What Will Smith said, he said, racism isn't continuing to get worse, it's getting filmed. And so I wanted to have my input on what I did in reconciliation with the police brutality, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, any other person who has fallen due to police brutality. And, my sister and I happened to get together a peaceful march, as well as our good friend Alyssa Espita and Henry Duhart. And we kind of just we felt helpless in a sense. We were like, what can we do besides posting on social media? What can we do except for, these petitions? How do we get our voice to be heard? So we put the march together Sunday of, I think, 2 weeks last week. I'm not really sure. My brain is all fogged up, but we kind of just wanted to show that, this is our fight where we can rise above hatred. We can rise above ignorance and racism. And I think for the people and the outcome that we did have, I feel like that really set the bar to just follow. Our generation, I truly have hope now. A lot of adults would always tell me, you guys are the next generation. What are you going to do? Who are you going to elect? Whatever. But, I truly do have hope after what I saw on Sunday. But I think it's really important for people to start using their voices now. I think it's important for people to start using their privileges and just kind of educating themselves on the issues at hand right now.
I definitely 100% agree with you. And I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your perspective and also what you have done. I just felt like it wasn't right for me personally. I can never understand. And I'm really, really blessed to have you on here to kind of give your perspective on all the issues. And it was really, really cool to see like our small little town come out and use their
right.
voice.
That's what I said. Our Martin County. Could you? I never could have imagined.
I know.
Me neither. Go ahead, Connor.
That was mind-boggling.
It was just crazy to see hundreds and hundreds of people coming out, and honestly, just to see this big media storm kind of arise where people are really beginning to educate themselves on the matter of race and racism. And, finding out that it's not just a face-to-face thing, and learning about structural and systemic racism that exists within the United States and across the world. Seeing such a large population, especially the youth, become informed on something like that is incredible to watch. It's devastating, the circumstances that made it come to be, but the matter of fact is we're finally tackling this issue that is racism, that has been around for so long, and seeing the country unite over a topic like this, where we're really here and we're trying to tackle the topic at hand, is really interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And our age group really came together, and we really like worked towards something, which is cool and doesn't happen usually at our age. And I think we finally realized how to use our social media and use it for the good. And and even the bad, like there's always people that are going to disagree for some odd, strange reason, but there's always people that are going to disagree. But it was just coming together and like realizing that we can get our voices heard just through the like tap on our phones, which is crazy. Like we can change so much if we unite ourselves as a generation and speak our mind, which it was really cool. And although it's been a really, really sad and devastating week, it's also been a really, really cool and inspirational week.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was great that, people are starting to realize now about politics. This is not a political issue. This is a race issue. And this was finally something that people, put aside their differences. They put aside their ethnic differences, their political backgrounds. It really didn't matter, because we all knew, that this situation with George Floyd especially, it wasn't justifiable at the fact that an officer had his knee on a man for 9 minutes. 9 minutes, he's pleading for his mom, and I think, people were able to see, okay, this isn't right. There's no reason for us to, put the blame on George Floyd, whatever he was selling, whatever he was doing. Like, there was an issue at hand. We're tackling the issue at hand. We're talking about it. We're educating ourselves. And I think that's what is the most important thing that people can do now, is just begin to educate themselves.
100%.
Yeah. And the changes are going to be made, hopefully. And I hope it, coming from young kids, I hope it comes with legislation and laws and stuff. And I really think that it will. But I kind of wanted to open it to conversation, because I know that with all the peaceful and good that's been going on, there's been destruction and violence and riots. And I kind of wanted to just have a conversation about it and talk through maybe why people do that, or why it's wrong to do that, or how we can fix those things. And I read an interesting article because I wanted to know kind of why people were doing this. I was like, we're being peaceful, you know what I mean? Like, why the violence? Like, why add this into it? And I realized that, first of all, speaking on race, there's a lot of white people who are joining in the riots and causing destruction, which I found was interesting. And I think that needs to be included in the statistics, like just for future reference. But besides all of that, I was reading, and people feel like it's a chance to balance the scales. Something so horrible has been taken from them for so many years, or people that they loved, and all of that. And it's a chance to balance the scales. They don't think that by taking things from a big brand company, they're really losing any money. And in reality, the people who are causing the destruction are gaining money. So that was one take on it. Another take is the release value, because of the built up tensions from being inside and quarantine and Corona. And a lot of it had nothing to do with the movement at all. It was just tension.
Yes,
and it was just caused.
Some people are doing this just for selfish gain. I'm not going to turn a blind eye and be like, no, well, we're doing this for Black Lives Matter. No. What's unfolding in those streets in the cities across America? Now, I'm going to admit, people are very hurt. People are upset. They're getting out their emotional anger, their outrage. People are very angry. And I'm not saying that the destruction of property is right at all, that cursing the police out, throwing bottles and provoking violence is right. But, what a lot of African Americans and Blacks believe is that this might only be the way that get heard. You know, I'm not saying it's the only way, but you know, and I can't say that I stand for it 100%, but it's just really hard when my peaceful protest, it got on local news. I'm very happy about that. These riots and everything, the looting, that is hitting national news. But also, that's not going to bring back George Floyd. You know, so it's just like you have to think, like, why are we doing these riots?
But one thing that I did think was beautiful is even the small businesses that, yes, have been burned down by these riots and protests, continuing to support Black Lives Matter after the fact. Like Gandhi Mahal, this daughter was writing up a Facebook post as her father was on the phone, and she wrote that she heard him say, "Let my building burn. Justice needs to be served. Put those officers here." And after that building was burned down, the community actually came together and raised $100,000 for the, you know, rebuilding of Gandhi Mahal. And I thought something like that was beautiful. You know, yes, my property was burned down and it hurt, but you know, the owner truly understood the magnitude of the issue at hand, and seeing him, you know, despite all of his loss, come out in support of the movement and then watch the movement back him up and continue to support him was really a beautiful thing to see. You know, when people can come together and raise over $100,000 for a small business because he understood the, you know, the magnitude of the issue that we're facing right now.
Yeah, and kind of not in disagreement and not on the other spectrum, but it's hard for me to justify violence in any capacity, and it's hard for me to justify small businesses getting destroyed, and that's hard to see, and it makes me heartbroken. But at the same, not even at the same time, I just feel like we need to use, personally, my privilege to hear the movement before people have to feel like they go to such violent levels. And I feel like that's what we needed to do in the first place. We did. We needed to hear people. We needed to listen, and we needed to act on those issues. But I really, really hope that the violence stops and that people are heard and people take this seriously so no one else gets hurt. That's kind of my standpoint on it. But
yeah, and there are so many policies that, you know, need to be reformed or need to be enacted. Like, you know, some of the issues we face with things like qualified immunity or some of the mandatory minimums placed on nonviolent crimes, right, that disproportionately impact people of color, especially the Black community. You know, policies like those are really harmful. And while, you know, some of them may not need to be abolished, at least reformed, you know, to make the system more equitable for everyone that's in it.
I completely agree. And I really, really love that stance.
Yeah, to that point, I think judges should be given more latitude. The mandatory minimums, the problem is it takes away the decision making that the judges are really duty bound to employ. So I think that by giving that either or giving the authority back to the judges, the mandatory minimums could do a great service to everybody.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, by giving that authority back to the judges. So that's just my 2 cents worth. But I've enjoyed your dissertation, your chat on that. So I even turned off my mic and just sat back and listened. It was great. That was great.
Yeah.
We're getting close to, we got another like 5 minutes. We could take our next break. Do you want to disconnect the Zoom and reconnect during break again?
Sure.
All right. Normally we'd have this conversation off air, but it's probably the easiest way to get that information. All right, good. So you got 5 minutes. We could pick up another topic if you'd like.
I actually have a poem that I wanted to share from a really, really close friend of mine. Her name's Trinity Graham. And she wrote a poem about what's been going on. And I asked her to come on today, but she couldn't. She had a conflict. But If you don't mind me sharing
go
the
ahead.
poem, I'm
Sure.
gonna play it. This is her voice, so just let me know if you can't hear.
In our world is today. The world has many problems, but I'll pick one that constantly keeps me awake. I think in this world we have a problem dealing with race. Not saying this because I'm Black. I'm just speaking from the battles minorities face. Would I be wrong to say there's no solution to this problem? The media is constantly polluting the minds of people when they follow. To think the color of our skin is screaming out violence when really it's just a complexion. There's a human behind it. But do you notice? I try to see my Blackness as beauty, but it's constantly misfocused. We have to act a certain way so people don't see us as murderers. If I talk with a slang doesn't mean I don't have a brain, but a Black person being educated is the last thing people think. When it comes down to the streets, our education doesn't mean a thing. Maybe if we walked around with our degrees, you would start to see our face. Maybe you would even stop and think before pulling the trigger. A Black person in a hoodie isn't an evil figure. A Black person on the street isn't always a drug dealer, but society is still stuck on Black being the problem. As if our Blackness caves over the sun and causes the world to darken. But misleading guidelines cause us to be the target. We are different, yes, but you make it notice. Why judge us before we speak? Our greatness is slowly loading. I've seen young lives taken at their peak and Black families be broken, all because of the hate in the world on a color that God has chosen.
You asked me? Thank you. I really appreciate everyone listening for that, and a big thank you to Trinity for sharing her words and getting an inside perspective on it all.
Did she wrote that?
Yes, that was a gorgeous speech.
She wrote that herself.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Wow.
She's an amazing poet, and she wrote that herself.
Mhm.
I think a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan, right?
Yes.
And that was her contribution of many that she made to the movement, and I think that it really put a different perspective on my beliefs and what I thought, and I just thought that it really touched me, so I wanted to share.
Very good. Excellent. Well, yeah, and even though it was a recording, it came through pretty well.
Right. That's
Yeah,
why
I worry
like,
about those
wow,
sort
the
of things,
sound
but
is really
yeah, you
good.
spring it on me. It's like, okay, let her rip. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it worked out fine. That was good. All right. So let's take this as an opportunity to take our regulation timeout, and we'll be right back after these messages. Minute and a half.
It's jungle out there, disorder and confusion everywhere. No one seems to
In case you don't know, this is the theme music from a TV show called Monk. And he is the biggest germaphobe on the planet, which he was ahead of his time with this COVID-19. He would be in his element. Anyways, all right. If you miss that TV show, I'm sure you can do listen backs on Hulu or YouTube somewhere. It's out there. Of course, I'm out there too, but that's another story. Go ahead.
So welcome back for the second time. Thank you guys for still listening on. So I don't have too much to talk about, but there is something that I kind of related to the movement that's going on. But Virginia governor and the whole state of Virginia are debating whether to remove the Robert E. Lee statue.
Well, that conversation's been going on for years. Yes.
I think they decided that they are finally removing it a few hours ago.
Oh, okay. So yeah, here's open floor for conversation about what you guys kind of think about that. And
I mean, I personally think that it is a good idea because the statue, a lot of people truly believe that statue kind of glorifies white supremacy, and like it kind of perpetuates like those principles that were in place and that Robert E. Lee stood for. And so I think that having a Confederate monument, which is essentially memorializing a treasonous moment in our past where there was this government that wanted to split from the United States, I think that memorializing that, and especially what they stood for, is not something that we should stand for. And so I think taking it down is a good idea.
Do you think it's a good idea or do you think by taking it down, say, here's the problem, because having the statue there allows for a conversation. If the statue doesn't exist, and then it's like you are erasing a piece of history, and that is our history. There are warts and there are good things and bad things, all part of American history. It's not all hearts and flowers. And I think we need to look at ourselves and look in the mirror and be able to see the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. And sometimes if you remove these things, then you are, in a sense, erasing history or trying to manipulate the conversation. No longer is there. I think it's good to have the conversation and to have a reminder that we were in a different place than we are today. We are a much better, stronger country as a result of the issues that they wrestled with back in the 1800s. Anyways, that's my 2 cents worth.
I like that. I like both.
Yeah.
I think that both are. It's definitely a hard conversation, but it's kind of a cool statement of where we've come and how much farther we all hope to go.
Mhm.
Jordan, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like in relation to when we had an issue with whether or not we were going to take away the Confederate flag. And, I get it's been there for a long time, but that was also back then when our system was based in honor of enslaving people. And yes, it is a part of our history, which is very to grow from. We don't have to think of it how it was thought back then to now. But I think because it's, these issues are prevalent now. These issues were prevalent back then as well. Obviously, we didn't have a say back then because we were thought as property. So I think now that people are able to voice their opinions, to, take action to something, I think the statue should be taken down.
Yeah, I think it truly like memorializes, that part of our history. And while yes, we should continue the open conversation because race relations are not where they need to be right now, even though they are obviously better than they were back then. I think it's not necessarily about like continuing on the conversation. I think that can remain without keeping up a statue that in ways glorifies that part of our past. Because it is a memorial, which is supposed to have a good connotation, not a bad one, in my opinion.
Right.
I don't know if it really glorifies it. It just features a piece of the past. This is who and what we were, and some of the people involved in who and what we were. I don't know if it necessarily creates any glory. It just is a statement of who these people are. I don't think we should read more into acknowledging that these people did exist.
I have actually a listener who texted me a question that I would like to propose.
All right.
He said, how about it is the decision of the people that live in that community? Like, why should we have a say if we live so far away? And I don't know the answer to that question, obviously, but should the people of that community be the ones to have the final say on that?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I kind of have a problem with that because, if you just limit it to one state, you always have your blue side, you always have your red side. And so it's going to obviously be up to the majority. But with the statue in place over time, it's a reminder of the country's history of slavery and racial oppression. So I think it should be up to, all 50 states, to be completely honest. Because, again, this is our history. It's not one state's history.
Yeah, and I did see like some striking images of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people gathered around that monument, protesting the fact that it still is up. And I saw, the images of, all of the graffiti and the vandalized, statue itself. And I think you could truly see how people and what people thought that statue reflected, even in modern day, by the images that were portrayed on it just a few days ago. Yeah.
And well, we only have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to thank you guys so much for just being able to have like an open and really civil conversation about all that's been going on, and for coming in and sharing your opinions. And I just really wanted to thank you guys, and I wanted to thank everyone listening to our thoughts and our messages, and to Frank for always helping us out and having really, really cool things to say.
About SpaceX, yes. That too, right? I'm the resident space cadet over here, so.
Absolutely,
yes.
And I knew you would be. That's why I had to include it.
I love it. That is so cool. That is great. And next week, do we know who's going to be on the panel?
We have no idea, and I guess that's the fun of it all.
All right. All right. All right. Well, that'll be the magic of radio. We need to figure that out between now and next Thursday. And
Absolutely.
we will, but, and then hopefully maybe one day in the not too distant future, we can actually have students come in the studio once we are no longer social distancing, because the studio is, it's social distancing would be difficult to do in the studio. It's a rather small studio. So,
okay.
So, yeah, so we have to kind of wait till we could figure out how to best do that. But this Zoom thing is really amazing. It's working out, I think, fairly well. Although I will tell you that even in radio, when we have a conversation, a roundtable conversation, there is visual cues we get from hand gestures, eye movement, facial expressions. We read that as part of language too. So we lose some of that when there is, on the air strictly through the digital media. But I think we're, soldiering on rather well, we can all consider.
Yeah, it's definitely a new society that we all have to get used to, not only with the radio show, but with everything else. It's just another thing that we are figuring out another way, not a worse way, but just another way.
Right. And this probably could be a good opportunity, too, to remind our listeners, again, this show is basically youth and government centric thinking through Martin County High School and the school system. South Fork High School has really been the prime school featured during this the run of this show. And we're glad to have Martin County back on board. So that I am really happy to see that. So very good.
Well, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll be back again next week right here on Treasure Coast Forum.